All right, here we are, and notice my microphone was hanging down, but here we go. We are live and back, and Happy New Year to you, and everything else that's good, and we hope it's a blessed year. If you want to have a blessed year, the best thing you can do is keep your faith in Jesus, isn't it? And last year may have thrown a lot of things at you, but God's still God. And we need to learn to stand in Him. So stand up and be counted, as they say. All right. Sorry we got off to a late start. We actually started on time, but we had a false start. We started, but for some reason it didn't take. So anyway, here we are, and we're going to start this morning talking a bit about Israel. Lots of things happening concerning Israel, and why is it important if things happen concerning Israel? Why is Israel more important than the United States? Even if you live in the United States, you should be more concerned with Israel than you are the United States. Why is that? Well, it all started back with Abraham when God said that, basically told Abraham, you're the one. You and your people, you're the one. And that you will bless all nations and etc. So, Israel, the end times are what? They're all about Israel. And so if it's all about Israel, then we need to watch Israel. Matthew 24, verse 32. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Now, obviously, Jesus was not talking to the disciples, calling them that generation. He was saying what? The generation that sees these things, the restoration of Israel, and I believe more notably when Israel took possession of Jerusalem, that generation will not pass away. In other words, everything that happens in the end time will be in their lifetime, will be in their span of a generation, biblical generation about 70. So from 1967 to 70 years, somewhere in there. If it goes back to 1947, then obviously we're coming at a close of that generation. And so I was telling my wife, I was watching a teaching earlier this week, someone that's going through biblical timelines for end-time events. But there's not a complete timeline given anywhere because there's skips in the timeline. The most reliable timeline for when things are going to happen is what Jesus has said, that the generation that sees these things concerning the fig tree, that sees Israel come back as a nation, that generation will not pass away. We're obviously in that time. So we must be concerned with Israel. And again, there's really no signs pointing to the rapture. The only sign pointing to the rapture has been fulfilled. Jesus went back to heaven. That's about it, isn't it? And so what we look at to gauge where we're at in time is events concerning Israel. People made a big mistake back when I was younger watching events concerning the Soviet Union and the United States. While all that has an impact, you always watch Israel. All right, so let's look at a few things that have to do with Israel right now of greatest concern. Number one, Israel is facing a new election. President Netanyahu won his party's election to run as leader of their party to be president of Israel again, prime minister, whatever he is. So they're going to have an election, I think, in March. And that will greatly determine what happens in Israel. It's very important. Now, it's not going to determine a lot of events, but just how Israel responds to these events. Now, what's happening now of greatest concern is that the Palestinians, first of all, they've been in a small uprising since October. Started on religious grounds, access to their sites on the Temple Mount, and it's been continuing. It's just small attacks here and there. Hamas is firing rockets, missiles back into Israel. And so we have continued attacks, but also we have Mr. Abbas, who is not head of Hamas, but is head of the Palestinians in the West Bank. Hamas controls Gaza. The Palestinians in the West Bank are under the leadership of Mr. Abbas. He and his government have applied to the United Nations for statehood. And they just want the UN just say, hey, we get to be a country. And we get whatever we want from Israel. And part of the problem of this is they want Jerusalem as their capital. At least East Jerusalem. And that would mean Jerusalem was once again split in the middle. They want their country to represent pre-1967 borders. Why is 1967 important? Because that was a war which the Arab nations attacked Israel again, and Israel captured Jerusalem. Excuse me. And it's very important to the Palestinians and to most of the world that Israel not have Jerusalem. Why is that important to most of the world? Because as long as Israel can be kept from having a capital in Jerusalem, and most of the world doesn't understand this, but that's why they go along with it, because of the force behind it. As long as they can be kept from having a capital in Jerusalem, they'll never settle the issue of the temple. And there's friction there because the enemy's camp is always divided. On one hand, we know the Antichrist will walk into the temple and declare himself to be God. But the enemy would rather not have the temple because that does what? That keeps any conflict between him and Jesus away. Because the enemy knows this, he doesn't win against Jesus. He tries to win against us, the church. He ain't going to do that when we let him. Jesus never lets the enemy win. Even when he thought he was winning, when he was crucified, the enemy lost. But if the temple can be kept from being restored, then that keeps everything from happening. That keeps the kingdom of God from establishing itself on the earth. The kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, is dependent upon a temple being built. We don't like to think God is dependent upon anything. But we must have a temple in Jerusalem before the kingdom of God can ever be established on this earth. Because that's where Jesus will sit and reign for 1,000 years in the temple. And so the question of Jerusalem becomes very important. The struggle is not just over the state of Israel. The struggle is over the question of Jerusalem. Well, the Palestinians went to the United Nations a while back, and through the General Council, which doesn't really have a lot of say in matters, they got approval that they could have their state. Well, the part of the United Nations that decides these things is the Security Council. So the other day, just this last week, the Security Council had a vote. And it was on the statehood of Palestine, giving the Palestinians a state with Jerusalem as their capital. Well, it took 9 votes. The Security Council usually has, so many different members, but only 5 are permanent, and that's China, United Kingdom, France, Russia, and the United States. And what's significant about these countries, not that they have a larger vote, but they can veto any resolution and kill it. And that keeps a lot of things from happening around the world because one country or another vetoes. Well, of the countries that were there to vote, it would have taken 9 votes to pass it without a veto from the U.S. And 8 countries voted to pass it. Now, Israel's marking that as a victory, but understand 8 voted to pass it. One of the ones that voted to pass it of note is France. Now, France has many issues. They have a very large Muslim population. But Europe is also full of very non-religious people who do not like the Jews. And so France voted for statehood for the Palestinians. England, Great Britain, did not vote. In a sense, they didn't vote for it, they didn't vote against it. And several other countries that should have voted no, but they didn't want to hurt Israel, but they didn't want to stand up and be pro-Israel. But out of the 2 that voted no was Australia and the United States. So, you know, Australia, get ready for some blessing, and you need it because lots of things keep happening in Australia. United States, hey, we're open for a little blessing. Of course, we keep giving our blessing back, don't we? Because we keep speaking against Israel. Relationships with the people of Israel and the United States are so bad that one of our representatives was touring an area, and villagers in that area in Israel got out and started throwing rocks at them. Started throwing rocks at our delegation because we don't support Israel the way we should. And so anyway, the Palestinians didn't get their state, and France, you better watch out. Genesis 12:3, if you bless Israel, if you bless Abraham, you'll be blessed. If you curse them, you'll be cursed. France, you're going to have some bad times along with all the other countries that voted no. Plus, the countries that didn't vote, didn't take a stand, probably not very good. So, you know, if you're living in France, I'd be praying for my country because you're set for some problems. You see, I mean, God has a way of saying, okay, you wanted to take my people's home, I'll take your homes. I'll mess with your land. So, France, you're in trouble. That's not me being prophetic, just able to read. But some of the problems facing Israel is not only Palestinians are trying every way to get their state, but they're also petitioning to become part of the International Criminal Court. And what that does, that gives them the right to bring cases against members of the Israeli government. Now, it's no big deal. It probably wouldn't hurt anyone. Israel is telling the court that they have no right to take in the Palestinians because they're not a nation. And that court is made up of nations, not groups. And it just depends on how they recognize the Palestinians. But Israel is now taking measures to come against the Palestinians. They're withholding millions of dollars from being transferred to them and doing other things, which is heightening tension. You add to that the United States is condemning Israel on a regular basis. Israel's also facing problems with Iran. They've got the election. They've got literally most of the world against them. And so we see that Israel this year, I believe more than any other year, is the crisis point of the world. And what you want to do is keep watching Israel, see how things develop, and we'll know where we're at. I still believe the word that I gave out not long ago, that be ready for an announcement on the temple. I believe now that one of the things that Israel is going to do to establish its right over Jerusalem, I believe they're going to start making themselves push toward reestablishing the temple. Because everybody says, well, all you have is a wall there. They have their mosque and they have their holy sites and everything. I believe this is going to push Israel to making that announcement. And so be watching, because there's a lot of things going on. You have ISIS that is, their main goal is not just to kill Christians, but to destroy Israel. And so you have a lot of things going on. Most notably, just continued friction between Israel and the Palestinians. And this is spreading throughout the world in favor of the Palestinians, which is nothing new. But our government is really in favor of a Palestinian state. We just didn't like the way they were going about doing it. So keep your eyes on Israel. The election coming up, different things happening. Watch what's happening with the Palestinians. Look for tensions to escalate. Look for many things to just make everybody stop and stare and just like, wow, why is, don't these people understand there's a more peaceful way to do this? But no, they don't. They don't. So as we move into 2015, begin to live it, watch, because in the next few months we're going to learn a lot about the end time from what happens in Israel. So God bless you. We're going to break away now, play some music videos for you. Again, you have to be on the full featured viewing tab to see them, and we're going to come back and get your faith activated for the new year. And if the Lord so moves, then we'll talk about things to come. I really haven't got any detail on that yet. I've got some overlays, but as soon as I hear from the Lord, I'll get to you. And you say, oh, I'm impatient to get it. Well, this is just the first weekend of 2015, right? So I think we've got time to get ready. But anyway, we'll see you in just a minute. So sit back, enjoy some music videos, get your bowl of cereal, whatever you need to do, and we will see you somewhere around 11:20.